All right, so let's get okay, Shannon, I see your message. Thank you. Let's get started with today's class. I think we normally do have a couple more students join us anyways, but um, they'll fill in when they come in. It's fine. But for now, let's begin with our agenda, right? So we got a little vocab exercise to start things off. We're gonna read a paragraph. That paragraph has our two vocab words used in it. And our task is to figure out what we think the definition of these words are. So we're going to or not make up, but we're going to take an educated guess at these definitions. Then we'll look at the real definition. We'll look at real examples using them, and we'll write our own examples using these words. Then we're going to move on to a little novel study. We'll check out a passage from a novel, answer a few challenging questions, and we'll move on to our lesson plan, which is about um, deeper, more philosophical themes. I think we recently just started talking about fate versus free will. So we'll continue that today. But let's jump into this, our first activity, vocab. As I mentioned, we'll read this paragraph. Shannon, can you read this paragraph for me, please?
Throughout history, some leaders have used Machiavellian tactics to gain and maintain power. Rather than earning trust through honesty and fairness, they manipulate information, spread fear, and eliminate opposition to strengthen their authority. Once in power, these leaders may seek to subjugate the population by limiting freedoms and discouraging criticism. As citizens become increasingly fearful of punishment or exclusion, they are less likely to question authority, allowing corrupt systems to grow stronger. This demonstrates how manipulation and control can work together to undermine justice and individual freedom.
All right, very well done. And that first vocab word, by the way, I forgot to correct you, but it's pronounced Machiavellian. So this CH is actually a hard C sound. Anyways, with this paragraph with these two vocab words, I want you to figure out the definition of these two words. And I want you to explain it a little bit as well. So provide like context clues from the paragraph that helped you figure out what the definition is. Overall, your answer should be around like one or two sentences for each word, which is probably going to be around 2 to 4 sentences total. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. But I'll let you begin writing and we'll take it up hopefully in like around 5-ish minutes. All right. Nicely done. So I got an answer here so far. Dora, I see that you joined us. I don't know if you just joined us or, if you're here for a bit. But we were working on a vocab exercise. I guess for now you can skip on this exercise, but we'll get you caught up to speed for the next uh practice. For now though, Shannon, can you read your answer for us, please?
I think the word Machiavellian means manipulation and scheming. The phrase gain and maintain power and manipulate information gives you a sense that Machiavellian tactics are a sly way to tell someone to do something. I think subjugate means to take control of. The phrase limiting freedoms and discouraging criticism tells me that subjugate means to limit and control a group of people.
Nice. Very well done. So you got both words, like the definition of both words pretty much like spot on. So Machiavellian means manipulation and scheming. Um, okay, my only thing is a very minor correction, just a little bit of phrasing here. So we can say something like means manipulation and scheming is a verb. Hmm. I guess we can change that word to something like deception. Can't think of a noun version that's appropriate for scheme, so I just changed the word entirely, but same, roughly the same meaning. The phrase gain and maintain power, we're putting two phrases, so let's put a plural. And this is plural, right? So it has to be give. Whoops. Give me a sense that Machiavellian tactics are a sly way to tell someone to do something. I think subjugate means to take control of. Again, nicely done. This is a very accurate definition. The phrase limiting freedoms and discouraging criticism tells me that subjugate means to limit and control a group of people. Very well done. Good job using a little bit of detail to back it up. And Dora, excellent. You submitted an answer as perfect. Can you read your answer for us, please?
I think Machiavellian means being very sneaky and willing to manipulate or trick people to gain power. I think subjugate means to bring people under control or force them to obey by taking away their freedom because the paragraph says these leaders limit freedoms and discourage criticism.
Nice. Very well done. So this is also very accurate with the real definitions. So we're doing an excellent job picking these apart. I think Machiavellian means being very sneaky and willing to manipulate or trick people to gain power. So this part is nice. The reason for being so manipulative is purposely to gain power. So good point there. I think subjugate means to bring people under control or force them to obey by taking away their freedom. Because the paragraph says, so what I'm going to do is add a comma here. Okay. So now this comma makes sense to put a pause there. Because the paragraph says these leaders limit freedoms and discourage criticism. I'm going to change this to people's freedom instead of freedoms. All right. Very well done. Like I said, both excellent job with defining the words correctly. Here are the provided definitions and examples. Dora, can you read this slide for us, please?
Machiavellian definition using manipulation, deception, and strategic cunning to gain or maintain power, often without regard for ethics or morality. Example, the Machiavellian politician secretly spread false information about his opponents to strengthen his own position in the election. Subjugate, to bring a person or a group under control, often through force, fear, authority, or oppression. The empire attempted to subjugate neighboring nations by expanding his military and crushing resistance. Write a short story about a society facing a major crisis, such as a natural disaster, economic, political conflict, and a new leader. emerges and promises to restore order. Explain whether this leader becomes a force for good or a threat to society.
All right. Excellent job. So thank you for reading. We have our definitions, but you guys did a great job already picking those apart. The task is at the bottom. We're gonna see if we can use both vocab words to write our own story, our own short story, paragraph, whatever. And the topic is, as it states, there's a society facing a major crisis. This can be any crisis you want. I just put a few examples there. A natural disaster, economic or political conflicts. Whatever happens, there's a big crisis and a new leader emerges. So that's the important thing. And we want to figure out, are we making this leader a good person, a bad person, a threat to society? Up to you. Be creative, explain, this topic, but most importantly, try to get both words included in your answer. Let's try to reach around the sentence limit, around 5 to 7 sentences. I'll give you around 10 minutes to complete. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. All right, so we got one answer submitted so far. I'm gonna take this up for now, and if another answer comes in, please submit as soon as possible. Even if it's a little bit short, that's okay. I just want to see some participation within like a timely manner. Okay, so Shannon, can you read your answer, please?
When a series of massive earthquakes shook the kingdom, buildings collapsed and food became scarce. As panic spread, a young leader named Leo stepped forward and promised to restore order and rebuild the country. He organized rescue he organized rescue teams, repaired roads, and quickly earned the people's trust. But behind his inspired speeches, Leo was secretly using Machiavellian strategies to gain more control of the society. After critics passed, he began to subjugate anyone who questioned his rules, limiting their freedoms and shutting down critics. The country became stable again, but people realized their new leader was turning into a threat to their freedom.
All right, very well done. As you're reading, I didn't really notice any corrections that I can make. Nothing stood out at least, but we'll still proofread it. But good job using both words, describing his strategies as Machiavellian. Um, Subjugating is, the act of him putting people under his control. As soon as there's like some kind of rebellion going on, he's subjugating those people. But yeah, very natural, very smooth way of using both of those words. Let's take this up. So when a series of massive earthquakes shook the kingdom, buildings collapsed and food became scarce as panic spread. A young leader named Leo stepped forward and promised to restore order and rebuild the country. He organized rescue teams, repaired roads, and quickly earned the people's trust. But behind his inspiring speeches, Leo was secretly using Machiavellian strategies to gain more control over the society. After the crisis passed, he began to subjugate anyone who questioned his rules, limiting their freedoms and shutting down critics. The country became stable again, but people realized their new leader was turning into a threat to their freedom. Okay, yeah, good. Very well written. Let's move on. Dora, can you read your answer, please?
After a terrible earthquake destroyed much of the country, people were desperate for help and stability. A new leader stepped forward and promised to rebuild the cities and protect everyone from future disasters. At first, the people trusted him because he worked hard to restore order. However, he soon began using Machiavellian tactics by spreading lies about anyone who disagreed with him. He also tried to subjugate the population by taking away their freedoms and punishing critics. In the end, the leader became a threat to society because he cared more about power than helping the people.
Nice. Okay. Um, yeah, you guys took a very similar approach to both answers here. It's very interesting. Like the sentence structure, even the usage of both words are like super similar. Um, yeah, I don't really know the reason for that, but it is interesting. So after a terrible earthquake destroyed much of the country, people were desperate for help and stability. A new leader stepped forward and promised to rebuild the cities and protect everyone from future disasters. At first, the people trusted him because he worked hard to restore order. However, he soon began using Machiavellian tactics by spreading lies about anyone who disagreed with him. He also tried to subjugate the population by taking away their freedoms and punishing critics. In the end, the leader became a threat to society because he cared more about power than helping people. Okay, good. No issues here. Both words used just fine. Okay, we're good. Let's move on. So, next topic, as I mentioned, we got our novel study. We're looking at a novel called The English Patient. Let's go with Shannon. Can you read this slide for us, please?
In the aftermath of the Second World War, the English patient takes place primarily in a damaged Italian villa where four individuals, each carrying the emotional and physical scars of war, find themselves living together in isolation. Among them is a severely burned man known only as the English patient, whose identity and past remain uncertain. As the novel unfolds, fragments of memory gradually reveal connections between the characters and events that shape their lives. Rather than following a straightforward narrative, the novel moves between past and present, exploring love, loss, identity, memory, and the lasting effects of conflict. Through interconnected stories and shifting perspectives, the characters confront questions about belonging, royalty, and the ways in which personal histories continue to influence the present. The novel ultimately examines how people attempt to reconstruct meaning after experiencing profound upheaval.
All right. Excellent job. So, I guess first things first with understanding this novel is just knowing the atmosphere, I guess. So we have the setting, we have the time period. It's just after Second World War. We know we are located in Italy. We're in a damaged Italian villa. And the people, mainly the English patient, we know roughly what he's going through. Severely burned man, doesn't know his identity, doesn't know his past, doesn't really know what happened. There's a lot of scars, both emotional and physical, following the aftermath of the war. And so that's closely tied in with all the themes that we're going to be looking at. Things such as experiencing loss, a loss of identity, memory, trauma, all these type of things we're going to be checking out. So let's look at this passage, a little bit of context plus the passage. Dora, can you read this slide, please?
The characters in the English page are all attempting to live with the consequences of events that cannot be changed. The novel frequently explores how memory shapes identity and influences the present. Hannah often found herself pausing between tasks, caught by memories that arrived without warning. A familiar scent, half-forgotten melody, or a passing remark could suddenly transport her to another time, making the distance half between past and present feel almost non-existent. She sometimes wondered whether people truly move forward through life or merely carry their histories with them, layer upon layer, until memory became inseparable from identity itself. Though years and circumstances change, the emotional weight of certain experiences seem to remain, quietly influencing choices long after the original moments had passed. Analyze the significance of the phrase, the distance between past and present felt almost non-existent, 3 to 5 sentences.
All right. Nicely done. So we have a little bit of context, to set up what's happening in this passage. So using this information on the page here, we're going to tackle this question. Analyze the significance of the phrase, the distance between past and present feel almost non-existent. So identify where that phrase is occurring in this passage. And, use the context clues, use the context provided above. And I'll give you guys a summary as well. I'll put that in the chat. Um, and yeah, you guys can continue or begin writing. Try to aim for around 3 to 5 sentences with your answer. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. Um, yeah, I think we can bump this up just a little bit. I think 4 to 6 might be okay. 4 to 5. All right, so it's been roughly like around 10 minutes. I got one answer submitted so far, which is great. I'm gonna give another couple minutes just in case we're still wrapping up our answers. Oh, never mind. Both answers in. All right, let's check this out. Okay, Dora, can you read your answer for us, please?
The phrase "the distance between past and present feel almost non-existent" shows that Hannah's memories are so powerful that they seem just as real as what is happening now. Simple things like a smell or a song can bring back emotions from the past and make her relive those moments. This idea connects to the idea that people carry their experiences with them throughout their lives. It suggests that the past continues to shape a person's identity and influences the choices they make in the present.
All right, very nicely said. So, the phrase "the distance between past and present feel almost non-existent" shows that Hannah's memories are so powerful that they seem just as real as what is happening now. Good. So the vividness of these memories, the fact that these memories are so, I guess, powerful in in her mind, in her subconscious, that's a good point to bring up. Simple things like a smell or a song can bring back emotions from the past and make her relive those memories. This idea connects to the idea. Okay, so it's a little repetitive saying idea twice. So we can use a synonym here, the notion. So this idea connects to the notion that people carry their experiences with them throughout their lives. It suggests that the past continues to shape a person's identity and influences the choices they make in the present. Okay. Uh, yeah, good stuff. I'm just trying to see. Okay, so I guess the only part that we can probably add is explaining why something as so mundane, so simple can have such a like a vivid emotional response for our character. So if you can explain why that is the case, maybe provide, if you can't find the information in the passage, maybe provide your own opinion on it, your own take. That would make this answer stronger for sure, but it's a good answer nonetheless. Shannon, can you read your answer, please?
The sentence, "the distance between past and present feels almost non-existent," is a poetic way of saying the memories or past experiences feel so vivid that they feel like they're happening in the moment. The sentence describes time being blurred up by memories, both good and bad. The phrase "caught by memories that arrive at warming" shows how memories take up time and how much memories take up time and how much it takes out of her current moment.
Okay, good stuff. So we took a slightly different approach here. We're mentioning bad memories as well, which is important. So the sentence, "the distance between past and present feels almost non-existent," is a poetic way of saying the memories or past experiences feel so vivid that they feel like they are happening in the moment. The sentence describes time being blurred out by memories, both good and bad. Um, Time being blurred out by memories, both good and bad. Okay. The phrase "caught by memories that arrived without warning" shows how much memories take up time and how much it takes out of their current moment. Okay. I think we can probably make this last part a bit more specific. We can say something like how much emotional energy, maybe. I should put that over here. Emotional energy it takes out of her current moment. Okay, so as I was saying, we can be more specific with our answer. Our answer does seem slightly vague for the most part. Maybe we can add specific details. Like you did mention a quote. The quote itself, we can explain it a bit deeper. We can go into a little bit more detail and provide a little bit more of our own opinion on this. But it's a good answer. Definitely a good start for sure. Let's continue with, should have another, yeah, okay. Got another question, pretty short, simple question. Analyze the symbolism of layers. So now I guess we can, yeah, we'll keep the same sentence limit. But now we're focusing on the layers. We're focusing on what these layers mean. What is the symbolic meaning of them, not the literal meaning. And this time for sure, you got to really back it up with your own take. Because when we're explaining any kind of symbolism, it's not going to be clearly stated to us in the text. We're going to have to use our own opinion and back it up ourselves. So another around 10 minutes or so to write up this answer. And we'll take it up whenever you're ready. If you have any questions, please let me know. All right, so I got one answer submitted so far, which is great. I'm going to give you another couple minutes in case you're still writing and wrapping up. But in a couple minutes, we'll take up our answers. All right, well done. So we got both answers in. Let's check this out. All right, Shannon, can you read your answer, please?
Layers show how small actions or changes can affect someone so deeply. A layer first start out small, symbolizing the small action that first affect a person. Then the actions pile up and it leaves a significant imprint on a person. The phrase "through years and circumstances change, emotional way of certain experiences remain" show how layers stay since there's so many of them that leaves an impression.
All right, nicely done. So well-formatted answer, pretty clear topic sentence. You wrapped it up nicely with that closing sentence. Let's take this up. So layers show how small actions or changes can affect someone so deeply. Uh, okay. So a layer first starts out, should have an S at the end here. Starts out small, symbolizing the small actions that first affect a person. Then the actions pile up and it leaves a significant imprint on the person. The phrase "through years and circumstances change." Is it through or though? Let's go back here. I right here, though. Though years and circumstances change, the emotional weight of certain experiences remain. Shows how layers stay since there are so many, that it leaves an impression. Um, Shows how layers stay since so many of them that it leaves an impression. Okay, so I see what we're saying. I think we can probably rephrase this a little bit. Shows how small actions or changes can affect. So I think we're talking about the accumulation of a bunch of small actions or a bunch of experiences. Those are the layers that we're referring to. So we can say shows how the accumulation of small actions. So the actual adding up of all these actions, that's the layer that you're talking about. So overall, good answer. Very well said. Dora, can you read your answer, please?
The symbol of layer suggests that people build their identities from all of the experiences and memories they collect throughout life. Just as layers stack on top of one another, Hannah carries both happy and painful moments with her wherever she goes. The passage shows that these memories cannot simply be left behind because they continue to shape her thoughts and decisions. This symbolism supports the novel's idea that the past becomes a permanent part of who we are.
All right. Very well said. And good job of like clearly saying like this symbol represents this. So the symbol of layers suggests that people build their identities from all of the experiences and memories they collect throughout life. Just as layers stack on top of one another, Hannah carries both happy and painful moments with her wherever she goes. The passage shows that these memories cannot simply be left behind because they continue to shape her thoughts and decisions. This symbolism supports the novel's idea the past becomes a permanent part of who you are. All right, perfect. I have no corrections to make. Yours is very well written. Nicely done. I don't see anything missing with this answer. It looks pretty good to me. So, we do have a third question here, but I think we might be running out of time. I want to move on to the lesson plan. As I mentioned earlier, we're focusing on the topic of fate versus free will. And these first few slides are just defining what these mean. So let's read these through real quick. Shannon, can you read this slide for us, please?
Fate is the belief that events are determined by forces beyond an individual's control. These forces may be supernatural, divine, historical, social, or simply the inevitable consequences of circumstances. In literature, fate often appears as an invisible force guiding characters toward outcomes they cannot escape, regardless of their desires or actions. Characters who believe in fate may view their lives part of a larger plan, interpreting successes and failures as predetermined rather than chosen. The concept of fate raises raises important questions about responsibility. If a person's future is already decided, then to what extent can they be held accountable for their choices? In many stories, fate is not portrayed as a little supernatural power, but as an influence of circumstances that seem impossible to overcome. A character may be born into poverty, war, discrimination, or troubled family, and these conditions may shape their opportunity so strong that the future appears predetermined. Literature often uses fate to explore tension between what people inherit and what they choose.
Okay, excellent job. Thank you for reading. So, this is all about fate only. We're only defining fate on this slide. And it's talking about how it's the overall idea of your life kind of being predetermined. You have certain forces, certain circumstances that are in play, and your life is limited to that. So you don't have too much control over changing these parts of your life. You can't really escape it too much. A lot of times you'll see this in literature, in novels and movies, especially. Characters trying to push through whatever their fate has determined for them. But yeah, that is a major part in character building. Let's move on to checking out free will. Dora, can you read this slide, please?
Free will is the belief that individuals possess the ability to make meaningful choices that influence the course of their lives. It suggests that people aren't simply products of their circumstances, but active participants in shaping their futures. In literature, characters exercising free will make decisions despite pressure, expectation, or fear. Their choices become expressions of personal values, desires, and moral judgment. However, free will in literature is rarely absolute. Characters may have choices, but those choices are often constrained by social expectations, economic realities, family obligations, or historical circumstances. As a result, literature frequently presents free will not as complete freedom, but as the ability to act within limitations. This complexity encourages readers to ask whether true freedom exists or whether every choice is influenced by forces beyond the individual's awareness.
All right, excellent. So when we're looking at free will, now we're looking at kind of the opposite of fate in the sense that now you can change some stuff. You can try to apply pressure to whatever your, you know, predetermined life plan is. And I just want to highlight this one sentence in here real quick. This one. People are not simply products of their circumstances, but active participants in shaping their futures. So if you're going to take anything away from the topic of free will, it would be this sentence. You are an active participant, or our character is an active participant in shaping their futures. So let's look at a couple more slides. Okay, yeah, so just two more slides and then we're gonna do our exercise. Shannon, can you read this slide, please?
The conflict between fate and free will lies at the heart of many literary works because it addresses one of humanity's oldest questions. Are we in control of our own lives? When authors explore this tension, they often challenge readers to consider whether outcomes are caused by destiny or by individual decisions. A character may blame fate for the circumstances, while other may insist that personal responsibility matters above all else. The most sophisticated literature rarely provides a simple answer. Instead, it suggests that human lives are shaped by a complex interaction between circumstances and choices. The central question becomes, how much of who we become is determined by forces beyond our control, and how much results in the choices we make?
Nicely done. So this is a classic little, philosophy or um, yeah, I guess philosophy, psychology type of theme, fate and free will. How much control do we have of our own lives? We'll examine that in a few passages. And now we get to look at what are some things that will help us identify characters that are experiencing conflict with fate versus conflicts with free will. Dora, can you read this slide, please?
Indicators of fate references to destiny, prophecy, or inevitability, repeated patterns across generations, characters feeling trapped by circumstances, symbolism suggesting unavoidable outcomes, language emphasizing inevitability, couldn't escape, was destined, inevitable, indicators of free will, deliberate decision making, acts of rebellion or resistance, characters accepting responsibility, moments where choices alter outcomes, language emphasizing agency, chose, decided, refused.
All right. Excellent. So using these identifiers, for fate, for example, if we have a lot of repeated patterns, if we have the overall feeling of being trapped and can't escape, for free will, it's kind of the opposite. It's when our characters are making very clear decisions. They were being rebellious and, they're choosing their own lifestyle. These are things that can help us identify which of these two themes are occurring. So let's look at this first passage and we'll answer a couple questions. Shannon, can you read this slide, please?
Passage 1, Fate. For years, Elena told herself that she would leave the town. She spoke of distant cities, different futures, and opportunities that existed beyond the mountains that surrounded her home. Yet every season seemed to bring another reason to remain. Her father's illness, her younger brother's needs, the failing family business. Each responsibility appeared separately, but together they formed barriers so she could not quite overcome. She would never quite overcome. By the time she reached middle age, she no longer spoke of leaving at all. Looking back, she sometimes wondered whether she had made a choice or merely followed the path that had been laid for her long ago.
All right. So using this passage, I want to check out a few questions here. We'll go one by one. So let's just look at this first one for now. Oops. Okay. It says, how does the author use cumulative detail to develop the theme of fate? So cumulative, basically saying accumulating different pieces of information, adding on details. How are they using that technique to develop the theme of fate? Doesn't have to be a long answer. I think somewhere around 3 sentences will be suitable here. Um, Around 5 minutes, I'm assuming. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. All right, so I got a couple answers submitted here. So I'm going to take these up for now. And if anyone else is still writing, please submit as soon as possible. All right. Shannon, can you read your answer, please?
Author uses cumulative details to develop the theme of fate by continually stating problems that made Elena feel trapped. The author also uses words like barrier path laid to emphasize Elena being trapped, which gives us a sense that Elena's life had been laid before her long ago.
All right. Very well done. So the author uses cumulative detail to develop the theme of fate by continuously stating problems that made. Stating seems fine. Shannon, did you mean to say stating or starting here?
Dating.
Stating? Okay, we're good. So I'll just get rid of this underline. Problems that made Elena feel trapped. The author also uses words like barrier laid, path laid. Um, so let's separate these into their own quotes. Uh, yeah, there's a space there. Oops. Okay. To emphasize Elena being trapped, which gives us a sense that Elena's life had been laid before her long ago. Okay. Mm, okay, not bad. So it's just like continuing to say more and more things that added onto her feeling trapped. Not bad. Dora, can you read your answer for us, please?
The author uses cumulative detail by listing Alina's many responsibilities, such as her father's illness, her brother's needs, and the family business. Each problem has another obstacle, making it seem like fate is slowly trapping her in the town. This shows that her future was shaped by many small events that together felt impossible to escape.
All right, solid stuff. So the author uses cumulative detail by listing Elena's many responsibilities, such as her father's illness, her brother's needs, and the family business. Each problem adds another obstacle, making it seem like fate is slowly trapping her in the town. This shows that her future was shaped by many small events that together felt impossible to escape. All right, solid. So we're adding on these specific things that are happening to her and how it's making her feel. Makes her feel trapped in this town. Um, Her fate feels like it's kind of very limited. And we did provide accurate details. So yeah, this is good. This is good. Yeah. Um, yeah, really good stuff. That last line, maybe we could add that as well. I guess we did, making it impossible to escape. Okay, solid answer. Pretty good all around. Let's check out the next question. Let's put this on the screen. Okay. So to what extent is Elena a victim of circumstance versus an active participant in her own situation? So this one I kind of want to see a bit longer of an answer, around 5 sentences. I believe this one has a lot of opportunity for our own opinions to show, our own definitions of what it looks like to be a victim of circumstance, also defining what does an active participant mean. So we can probably beef up our answer a little bit. So try to aim for something close to 5 sentences. And if you have any questions for me, please let me know. All right, so I got one answer submitted so far. Let me just put that on the screen. I'll take it up. Whoops, it's weird. Okay. So this answer says Elena is largely a victim of circumstance because many factors outside her control, because of many factors uh outside of her control again. Her father's illness, her brother's needs, and the family business kept her tied to her hometown. Because, because of many factors. Oh, I see what we're saying, so we don't need this of. Because many factors outside of her control kept her tied to her hometown. These responsibilities created significant obstacles that made leaving extremely difficult. However, Elena was not completely powerless since she repeatedly chose to stay and prioritize her family over her own dreams. Over time, those changes became a pattern that shaped the course of her life. Therefore, Elena is both a victim of circumstance and an active participant in her situation, though the weight of her circumstances appears to have had the greater influence. Excellent. So we provided a good definition of both terms, a little bit of info to back up how both terms are relevant to the story, to Elena, and then you made your own decision at the end. You chose a stance, which is perfect. Very well said. I've got a couple more answers. Let's check these out. Shannon, can you read your answer, please?
Elena is a victim of circumstance rather than an active participant in her situation. Her father's illness, her younger brother's needs, and the feeling bruises restricted her to inside the mountains. Each obstacle formed a barrier for leaving her home, keeping Lena to her house. She could not have done more than helping her father, support her brother, and adding on to family business. With more and more obstacles throughout the years, she no longer spoke of leaving at all, because she knew that even if she tried her hardest, there will always be more obstacles to come.
All right. Nicely done. I do think that last sentence, if we had just like taken out the quote and paraphrased it instead, it would have been stronger. Having a quote in your last sentence usually not a good idea just because you want to end off strong with your own words. But yeah, let's take this up. So Elena is a victim of circumstance rather than an active participant in her situation. Good. So we're taking a stance right from the jump. Father's illness, her younger brother's needs, and the failing family business restricted her to inside the mountains. Each obstacle formed a barrier for leaving her home, keeping Elena to her house. She could not have done more than helping her father, supporting her brother, and adding on to family business. She could not have done more than helping. Okay. With more and more obstacles throughout the years, she no longer spoke of leaving at all because she knew that even if she tried her hardest, there will always be more obstacles to come. Nice. So she no longer spoke of leaving at all. Let's see. Is that exactly word for word? Yes, it is. Okay. Let's see if you can paraphrase that. So with more and more obstacles throughout the year, um, Elena eventually found little hope in leaving at all. And we can actually cross out this comma as well. Elena eventually found little hope in leaving at all because she knew that even if she tried her hardest, there will always be more obstacles to come. Nicely said. Great answer right there. And one more answer. All right. Dora, can you read your answer, please?
Elena is partly a victim of circumstance because significant responsibilities such as her father's illness, her brother's needs, and the struggling family business limited her freedom to leave. These challenges created real obstacles that would have been difficult for many people to overcome. However, she is also an active participant in her situation because she repeatedly chose to stay rather than pursue her dream of leaving. Although each decision may have seemed temporary, those choices gradually shaped the course of her life. Therefore, Elena's situation results from both external circumstances and her own actions, making her neither completely powerless nor entirely responsible.
Okay. Good job defining both. We didn't necessarily pick a stance here, which is fine. It's okay. But um, you did a good job of, explaining how both of these are relevant in the story. So Elena is partly a victim of circumstance because of significant responsibilities, such as her father's illness, her brother's needs, and the struggling family business limited her freedom to leave. Um, yeah, sounds good. These challenges created real obstacles that would have been difficult for many people to overcome. However, she is also an active participant in her situation because she repeatedly chose to stay rather than pursue her dream of leaving. Although each decision may have seemed temporary, these choices gradually shaped the course of her life. Therefore, Elena's situation results from both external circumstances and her own actions, making her neither completely powerless nor entirely responsible. Okay. Uh, Making her neither completely powerless. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Good stuff. So that is it for our class today. We're out of time now, but good stuff. Really strong answers. I hope to continue with this for next week. See you guys later.